I could probably do that.
Let's see. It says we're live. I'm just waiting for it to show up here.
Okay.
Okay, it's showing up now. I'll switch over to my Peoria Speedway. There it is. Okay. All right. All right, we got people coming in. So, welcome to another episode of the Peoria Speedway live show with Jeff Hall, myself. We'll start off tonight's episode with giving our condolences to Keith Siegel's family, Jenna, his wife. We lost Keith Saturday morning. Funeral will be Thursday in Elmwood at 12. We will do Keith's final lap around Peoria Speedway around 12:30, 12:45 when we get down to the racetrack. And then we will leave the racetrack and go back out to Elmwood for his burial. But we'll talk more about that later after we get done interviewing with Johnathan. And next Monday's episode will be in tribute to Keith Siegel. Fans, racers, friends, family, you're more than welcome to come on and we'll share stories and reflect on Keith's life and how he impacted us and helped us all. So, but we'll go ahead and we'll bring on the Mars Series race director, Johnathan Clayton. Johnathan, how's your night going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. I've been up here at the office at Fairbury all day, tidying up a few loose ends, making sure we got everything good to go for season opener this weekend at Makokata. It's like, I don't know, it seems like just yesterday we were finishing up here at Fairbury in October, and you get done with that and you're like, man, it feels like it's forever before race season. You get through the holidays and you get through speed weeks and all of a sudden it's there in your lap. So it's like, it's one of those things. It's like when October's here, you feel like you can take a week off to kind of decompress, but honestly, if you don't stay on top of this stuff, you feel like you're down in a hole. And honestly, like I'll tell you the same thing I tell everybody. It's like once we start racing, honestly, that's the easy part. It's all the leading up and all the stuff after the race season that's kind of difficult. Like once we start racing, it's rinse and repeat every weekend for the most part. But no, we're excited to get it going.
Yeah, I want to say, heck, me and you started texting back and forth November, I think.
Oh yeah, like I mean,
Landon,
like
the Illinois State Championship race, because you guys were very pleased with how we handled that race last year and wanted to come on board as part of that with us. And this year's the 70th annual one, so it's the longest running race in the state of Illinois. So
I was going to say, you look at races anywhere across the country, there's not many that's reached the 70th annual, so it's going to be a huge deal. We're really looking forward to that one. Obviously, we're looking forward to the Swybold race in April that's coming up here in about a month. So, you've got a really nice schedule at Peoria this year, so it looks like a lot of good racing going on.
Yeah, we'll talk more on the Swybold in Illinois state championship race here in a little bit, but let's go ahead and get started. I know I've known you for 10 to 11 years, and a lot of the people really don't know much about Johnathan Clayton. Let's go ahead and give a backstory, where you're from, how you got into racing. Let's just give these guys a backstory on that stuff.
Yeah, before I get into it, me and you were chatting before we got on here, and it's like, man, it feels like just yesterday kind of getting to the scene up here, and then now you're looking, it's over a decade, and time flies when you're having fun. But no, I started out just like how a lot of people do. Like my dad was big into racing. He'd always just kind of went and watched, and he took me at a young age. And I don't know, probably 6, 7, 8 years old, I started taking a notepad to the racetracks, and I'd write down all the car numbers, and I'd score all the races from our seat just in the grandstands. And it's like, it's one of the things, like once you keep going every weekend, it's just like you just want more and more and more and more. And I don't know, like I grew up in Tennessee and lived there most of my life, and we moved to Alabama for a short stint. So Talladega Short Track was my weekly track for about 4 years, and really enjoyed living down there. And then we moved back to Tennessee, and I guess it was 2016 that I graduated college in Austin Peay in Clarksville. So backtracking from that, it'd be 2014, I guess, is really my first all-in experience on this side of racing, and started out as doing the internship on the Dirt Car Summer Nationals. And, you know, it's kind of crazy because that's kind of where I started. And honestly, that's the most grueling point of anything I've done. I mean, that year was probably the only year in my life that we have a rain out one of those days, and you're like, you know what, I'm not mad about it. Other than that, like any other time in my life, it's just, you're super bummed out when it rain out. But I mean, that, like back then, it's kind of like how it's looking like it's turned back into this year. It's like you were racing every day, and you had maybe an off day every couple of weeks, but
it was the old.
That's back when we would go to do the overnight trip from like Kankakee to Cedar Lake. I mean, there was some traveling then. I mean, I know there's a lot now, but there was some real traveling then.
Yeah.
But no, I did that for 2 years, and I kind of started mixing in, helping out at some of the bigger WRG events. I helped out a lot those couple years with Chris Tilley and Ray Cook on a lot of their series events down south. And honestly, all that kind of set me up to where once I graduated college, I had the opportunity to come on in a marketing position with the World of Outlaw Late Models, and graduated college and moved out to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I lived there and did that for 4 years. And kind of in the middle of that, I got to meet what is now my wife, and she grew up around the Danville, Illinois area, just outside of there in Fairmount. And she was going to college just outside of St. Louis. And it kind of got to that point where, like, we felt like we were probably going to be together forever. And either she was going to move to Charlotte or I was going to move up here. And it all worked out for the better that I ended up here. And then I stayed within the company and was able to stay in a full-time position working under Sam and doing all the Dirt Car Midwest stuff. And honestly, like World Outlaw stuff, you had a set schedule of about 50 races. And obviously, like, I messed up. I would go racing 3 times a week, even on weeks that we weren't racing. Most normal people would sit at home, but I just didn't do that.
No, you didn't. You would share every racetrack you would go to.
I know. And it's like, like now as I've gotten older and now I'm married and we've got 2 kids, it's like I can't quite go 5 hours on a Wednesday night and drive back home and go to work the next morning because there's other priorities. But I mean, when I was doing the stuff for Sam for 4 years, I mean, it was not uncommon to have 120 or 130 races on the schedule. I think the most races that I actually physically got in was somewhere around 122. And it's like, last year was probably the least amount of races that I've been to in the last 8-9 years. And I probably still went to like 92. So it's still a lot. But no, I did the 4 years with Sam full time. And then I got the opportunity to come work for Matt. We put all that together in December of 2022, and then been doing the Mars stuff for him. This will be the 3rd year of that. And I mean, as you can see, like it's went super well. We've built a lot of momentum over the winter. We've got a pair of schedules that's more races than Mars has had. And the late model deal has been around over 20 years. And if we get every night in, it'll be the longest Mars schedule that we've had. So here we are. And
you're just a couple days away from kicking it off. I mean, you guys picked up the Nippy 50. You picked up the Slocum. Those are 2 huge races that I believe the Slocum was a Mars race back.
Yeah, it's probably been, which I got a little bit of the backstory whenever I was obviously working on through all that and working on releases to get all the information out. But It was, I want to say, the 2017, 2018,
Yeah.
2019-ish time. They were a part of the Slocum, and it's like
Mhm.
also we're returning to Davenport this year
Yep.
for the deal in September. And, we went to Davenport most years up until
Mhm.
last year, just the scheduling didn't work out. But
Yeah.
no, it's like we've got I think it's 7 events total in the state of Iowa this year, which it really seems like we're going way out of our way going over there. But honestly, all those places we added in Iowa are within an hour of the Illinois border. So we're
Yeah.
still able to keep that tight circle and pick up a lot of good events. Obviously, with LaSalle coming back, we've got the race at LaSalle. It's paying $25,000 on May 31st. It's a 2-night deal. So, yeah, there's a lot of firepower added to the schedule along with all the stuff that we already had, and it's we're lucky enough to go to over 20 of the racetracks and keep it all right here in a tight circle. So
Yeah.
it's a regional guy's dream. I mean, there's 32 races and it's minimal travel. It's pretty good money for all the shows, and there's not a racetrack on that schedule that can't produce a top 5 race of the year. I mean, that's the best part about it. I mean, you go to all these racetracks and you're going to be able to race. It's not somewhere you're going to unload and it's going to be follow the leader. So
Exactly. Yeah. With being able to pick up these Iowa races, have you heard anything from like the Chad and Chris Simpsons? There's a couple other open guys. Duty has his he ran with you guys last year, but is it his shop in Iowa?
yeah, he works out of a shop in Iowa. He did a lot of, he does do a lot of flying back and forth from there in Oregon. Like if we'll race for a couple of weeks, he'll stay over here. But if we race a week, off a week, race a week, he will fly back and forth. So it's a lot for him, and a guy that's kind of in that similar boat that I know talked to Matt back at Wild West Shootout that's planning on doing all these as of then was Steve Stoltz out of Phoenix, Arizona, because he did the MLRA deal and he also worked out of a shop in kind of that Iowa area, so he's planning on doing the same thing for this. And it's like the Simpsons, they're both kind of to where they are in their lives. Like it's harder to commit to a whole schedule. I mean, the MLRA deal worked out well for them because it was around 25 events, but around half of them were at Wheatland. So, I mean, it was pretty close to where they're at. It is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
But they're going to stop in at a lot of these races. I don't think you're going to see them come to every single race, but I know like there's some of the St. Louis area guys that ran some of the MLRA stuff that they're seriously thinking about doing this. And it's like you talk to Tony Jackson Jr. And I think it's going to be really interesting as the deal goes on to see. I mean, the one thing about the regional stuff is a lot of those guys live right here in this circle. And it's like, well, they want to come the first 3 or 4 weekends and see how it goes. And if they want to keep going, they keep going. I mean, this year the points fund more than doubled. It went from a $35,000 total point fund to an $80,000 point fund. The champion went from getting $10,000 to now third place gets $10,000, with the champion getting $25,000. We added the driver loyalty program to where starting at the 7th event that we get in, that the drivers get free pit passes if they keep up perfect attendance. They get travel money depending on where they are in point standing. So there's more incentive than ever to run this deal. And I mean, the way the schedule is, it's like we've got more stuff in the spring than we usually have. I mean, obviously knowing scheduling events in March and April, that weather is going to be a factor, but you don't know. We've had some 70-degree days already. You don't know if we're going to hit one of those on a Friday or Saturday. And
yeah, the April 4th and 5th weekend, that's looking like they're calling 70s for that. So I mean, that's, you guys are in Paducah and Charleston, but that's our opening weekend. So I'm thrilled as could be right now because I see that weather. So
yeah, I've talked to Adam down at Paducah a lot, and I don't know if it's him or if it's us, but it's like we're cursed. We've tried to go there 3 times now. The first time the forecast was terrible and it ended up raining. The second time it was middle of summer, and each day the high was 97 and 98 degrees with the heat index of like 110. So we didn't go then because nobody's going to come watch when it's that hot. And then last year's World 50 rained out that. And it's like all these we've tried at different points of the year. So I told him if we can't get this one in next week, we're just going to schedule a race in December there, I guess.
Might as well.
Yeah. And then we're releasing Charleston for that event. So that's kind of a little out of our wheelhouse of what we usually do on the Mars shows. So it'll be interesting. We've worked with Sonny. We went down there a few weeks ago and checked the place out again, and really looking forward to next weekend. And I honestly, like, once we start here, I mean, between the Mars stuff and the Fairbury stuff, it's pretty hot and heavy till October.
Yeah.
But the good thing about our Mars schedule and the late models and the modified stuff is like, we hit it pretty hard in the spring, and then we get to the weekend of the dream, the second weekend of June, maybe the first weekend, depending on how it falls on the calendar this year. And then we're off basically all summer. If a guy wants to go run summer nationals all summer, they can go do it. If a guy wants to take the summer off, go to the lake this week, go race this week, they can do that. And honestly, that's what a lot of guys have liked about this deal. I mean, on the late model and the modified deal, we've pretty much held 8 to 10 or 11, 12 guys. I mean, we went into second week of August last year, and we had about 15 late model guys that still went to every show. And I'll tell you, there's not another regional late model series in the country that had that kind of following. And that's the biggest thing with this. We want to make schedules that make sense for the racer. They make sense for the promoter, because when I come to Brandon at Peoria, I want to be able to tell him, hey, if we do a Mars race, here's the guys that's coming. And I feel like if I'm a series that has no guys that follows the deal, what am I bringing you? So that's the big thing that we've been able to keep up on this, and hopefully we continue in the future. We're putting the pieces together to be able to continue to build as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, for our Swibold race, hopefully we have better. I mean, we didn't even think we were going to get that race in last year.
I remember
called me Friday, and you're like, "Are we really racing?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're down there working on the track right now." And you didn't.
I remember pulling in about lunchtime on that day, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And you know what? It ended up being great. I mean, there was so many cars, like it was hard to find a spot in the pits.
Mm-hmm.
Grandstand crowd was pretty decent, and that's with the weather being terrible the day before and the day after. And
yeah,
we hustled through the show, and we got most of it in. It rained the last few laps of the mod race, and I think a couple of sport classes, but
yeah,
all things considered, it went about as well as it could. But yeah, hopefully we get a little fairer shake this year and get a little better weather.
The Gary Swibold Memorial, it's a little different even for you guys, because Cole and I, we look for sponsors to pay for the heat. I mean, the Nippy 50 is doing that this year, but we look for sponsors to pay for the heat races. We look for I already got fast time awards, so there's a $500 late model fast time, and I think is a $250 or $300 modified fast time award.
Well, that's the thing about it. Like all that extra added money. I mean, you look at last year. I mean, it's very possible your driver that wins the late model race is going to go home with $7,000 or so. And like Michael Long last year led a bunch of laps, and he went home with a little over $3,000, I believe. And I mean, that's pretty good for a deal like this.
Yes, the lap, like you're talking lap money. So it's 40 laps for the late models. We're doing $50 a lap. And then for the modifieds it's 30, and we're doing $30 a lap. So I mean, if you lead all 30 in the modifieds, that's a 900 extra bucks, you know. So there's money there to be added, and we try to do it different ways. So I mean, if anybody's listening, they want to take part in this, get a hold of myself or Cole Swibold, or even let Johnathan know. He can text me and let me know. But
we'll get you in the right spot.
Yeah. You're going to get your names or whatever you want to sponsor the lap. Mike Norris will get the lap list, and it'll be on Flow also. So you guys aren't – it's going to be all over the place.
Yeah, and like for instance, like this weekend at Makokata, they've got a sponsor that's given extra money to the first non-transfer car out of each of the B mains. And honestly, them guys need it as bad as the guys that are finishing top three. I mean, the more ways you can split it, and the more guys go home with some money, the more guys are going to be happy and come back. So,
yeah, because the two first non-transfer guys on top of the tow money, which is nice, because a lot of places don't even give tow money. You get that extra money that they're going to have there. So that's a good deal too.
Not for sure.
So driver-wise, we've seen Shannon Babb has committed to running it for the first time ever. I don't think he's committed to any series, honestly, that he's stuck. I mean, all the summer nationals. I think he did Woo one or 2 years.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
But other than that, he's just been a true outlaw and hit and miss what he wants to hit. So it's going to be cool to see Babb on the Mars series.
No, for sure. I mean, because you look at Shannon Babb, I mean, he has won a lot of races over the years. You see him as a guy here the last few years that's ran real regionally, but then he can go to Wisconsin to an outlaw show. He can go to Eldora, and he stacks up right there with them. And there's no surprise if he's the guy that wins one of those shows.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see as the year goes on what kind of season he can put together. I mean, obviously, Jason Fager has been pretty dominant the past couple of years, more so 2 years ago than he was last year, because last year, the second half of the season hit, and Unzicker hit a different level, and he started rolling. Like, if he can shake the bad luck and leave the Gremlins at home, no pun intended there.
Yeah, he won that. He won the Swibel race for the second year in a row, and then after that, it was just bad luck all the way till – what?
Yeah,
after Summer Nationals were over?
I'll be honest with you. There was a point early in the year that Ryan didn't know if he was going to keep going to all these shows just to sit home for a couple of weeks and regroup. But he kept coming, and it paid off. And honestly, like, it came all the way down to that last weekend at Fairbury. Like, it was going to take some misfortune on Jason's side for Ryan to have a chance there. But mathematically, there was still a chance going to the championship weekend. And as a series, that's what you want because it keeps the interest. And honestly, I think between them three guys, I mean, look at Justin Duty. Justin Duty had a lot of good runs last year. I mean, my heart hurt for him at Macon when he was leading. And honestly, I think he might have won that deal. And then he had misfortune with about 10 laps to go. Like, and now, like, a guy like that, there's a lot of tracks we went to last year he's never been to because, you know, being where he is, it's not like he's next door to here. And when he's run the MLRA deal, they didn't go to many of the racetracks that we go to, so he didn't have a whole lot of notes. Now he's got a notebook of everywhere that we go for the most part. So I really think he's going to come on strong. And like Bob Gardner, I think you're probably going to see him come to all of them. I know there's a little uncertainty there, but I think you're going to see him at most of them. Mark Voigt, I mean, you know, he's been a big supporter of this deal. You're going to see him at all of them. And I've talked to you about Steve Stoltz. He's planning to come run. You've got Guy Taylor. You know, Guy Taylor's won about everything in every division you can in Central Illinois. And, you know, he's got the Wayne Graham ride this year. So you're going to see him chase this and as a Rookie of the Year contender. And
I would be surprised if you don't see Gordy and Trevor.
Yeah, I've talked to Trevor. Trevor's planning on coming to most of the shows here these first few weeks. And, like, that's the thing. Like, where we live – you've got guys like the Gundakers a little bit further, but you got guys like Tony Jackson Jr. You got Frank Heckenash Jr. You've got guys like that they're going to come to these races these first few weeks. And if they come out and they're getting top threes and top fives, you're going to see them keep going, I think. Yeah. So that's what makes this deal really interesting. I mean, honestly, like even your guys, so like, for instance, the last three races we've had, Brian Shirley's won the last three Mars races. It's like, there's a lot of weekends this year that World Outlaws are off or Lucas is off whenever we're racing. And, like, obviously this is a regional deal. It's about the regional guys, but it's nice when you can have the national guys come in and shake it up with these guys on their home turf. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I've talked to guys like Jeff Herzog, like Darren Klein, like guys like that are planning on coming these first few weeks and seeing how it goes. Like Alan Weiser, like, you know, he's run a lot at the halfway point last year. He was leading the points, which they're going to come probably. I know they're coming this weekend, and they're just going to kind of see how it goes. But, you know, they're going to be at a lot of races, and it's like Mike Spatola. That's a guy that's not going to come to all the races, but he'll probably be at half of them, and he's going to be a lot.
Yeah. Same with McKay. Richie Bell.
McKay's another guy. I mean, they're fully committed to running this whole deal, and honestly, like, that's a guy and that's a team that now they've been to most of these racetracks, and I think they're going to be a player. You know, McKay picked up that win towards the end of the year at Spoon River, and I think you're going to see him pick up a couple this year. I mean, he's got the talent and they've got the equipment and the knowledge, so it's going to be a really fun year on the late model stuff. The mod stuff, obviously, we've still got a couple weeks before we start that, but that deal looks real strong too. I mean, this will be the third year of that, and obviously Michael Long has been pretty dominant, but you know, he's got a new race car this year, and we'll see if it carries the same speed over. I know there's a couple different guys talking about running it, so it's going to be an exciting year on both series, honestly.
Even the modifieds, I mean, I see that as, like, you can probably still see 10 or 12 guys run that deal even. Like,
oh, yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you, just like I tell everybody, that's why you don't see me post a big list of here's all the guys that's coming, because if I told you every guy that's thinking about running both series right now, we'd have 60 late models this
Yeah.
week and 50 mods at Paducah next week. But
Yeah.
we take them whenever we can get them. It's
Mhm.
if you can run all the races, great. If you can only run one weekend, that's fine too. But
That's the thing. Everybody's wanting all these entry lists of like who's coming. Like people can tell us they're coming, and then we put their name down, and they're mad because they don't show up. Like
that's exactly why you'll never see me post a whole list. Like,
yeah,
I'm sitting here, I've got a list of 46 guys that's planning on coming to
exactly.
Makokata, but you're not going to see me post the whole list because
No,
the one moment Jeff Hall decides to not come, well, I drove 3 hours to see Jeff Hall race, and he's not racing.
yeah.
I want my money back.
It's funny how all that works out. I mean,
Oh yeah,
when we were kids, we didn't have the internet to say who's coming. We showed up to the Summer Nationals race. I mean, we knew Moyer was going to be there, and Pierce and Weaver. But other than that, we didn't know who was coming through those gates.
oh,
So
I
we
know. You
didn't
sat at the
really hit
pit
the
gate
race.
and waited on them to roll in.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you could go to PDC in 1995, 96, and you didn't know. Yeah, it wasn't World of Outlaws then, but you would walk the horse track and be able, because they had a fence around where they park now on the inside there.
Yep.
And they would park the cars on the horse track, the big trailers like Moyer and Gill and Pierce and them. And you'd try looking inside the fence there to see who's in there. And I mean, other than that, you didn't know who was coming.
And that's a real exciting aspect to these Mars shows even today. Because, like, for instance, you talked about Chris Simpson.
Yeah.
Last year we rolled in at Sycamore, and here comes Chris Simpson or
Mhm.
Chad Simpson rolling in, and it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a guy that reached out. I hadn't talked to. I didn't really think to talk to because you wouldn't think that he'd show up at Sycamore, even though he's not that far away. But it's cool having guys like that drop in. I mean, you never know when Shirley's going to drop in these.
Mhm.
I know Dennis Erb's planning on running the way it all lays out. As long as everything goes well, he's planning on running about half of these. So you're going to see some really good names every night of this. Doesn't matter if it's a 5,000 to win standard show or some of the bigger shows this week, like this weekend. I mean, this weekend you've got two of the hottest guys here in 2025 so far, with Ricky Thornton Jr. and Ryan Gustin both planning to be there. So I mean, it's going to be competitive every single night.
Yeah, and Herb, for example. I mean, even if the Woo, I know Woo's racing the week of our deal. If that cancels, Dennis is coming down to Peoria. He's a big guy that has supported. He'll text me. He has supported me with those events as much as he could. And he'll call or text me on Thursday or Friday. Wednesday or Thursday, actually, because he usually gets a heads up if Woo cancels or not. I just don't say anything because Woo hasn't released that they're canceling yet. So he's one of those guys that I appreciate a lot because he comes and supports us any chance he gets. And that means he doesn't have to. I mean, he does this for a living now, or he has for his whole life basically, but to me, it's Peoria Speedway, but to have somebody like that come in, it means the world to me. So
no, it's exactly like and that makes me feel good about the racetracks we go to, about the product and the series that we've built. Because now more than ever, it's really hard to get these guys, if they're committed to a national tour, to come race on a weekend they don't have to race because they have so many races and there's so much money out there. But another great example is a guy I haven't even mentioned yet was Brandon Shepard. I mean, Brandon Shepard's planning on bringing the family car this weekend. Towards the end of last year, he came down to Brownstown. He was going to be at Paducah. He's planning to come to our Iowa shows at Cedar County and 34, and you're going to see the B5 at a lot of these shows this year. But it's really good for the fans. It's really good for us to have these guys drop in. It just kind of speaks volumes about what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I mean, this series has turned. It's always been a big deal, but it was more of a Missouri, Arkansas type deal. Now it's came up this way. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys are over at 34 for the late models, but any modified guys that plan on coming to Peoria the week after, the night they don't race over at 34 for modifieds, we have the Gary Cook Jr. Memorial. That's 2064 to win. So if these guys want to come over and run for basically the same person they're going to run for the Mars race, come over and get some laps before then. So.
And I guarantee you there'll be some takers because it'll still be early in the year where a lot of them guys have not raced yet, or they've only raced a couple nights.
Yeah. So, no, Jonathan, I told you I'd keep you about a half hour. We went through a lot in that half hour. So,
Oh, I know. We're rattling it on off.
yeah, I can't wait to see you guys. And for us, it's about a month for us. So, um, again, if you guys want to take part in lap sponsors for that night, it's $50 a lap. That lap money each lap goes to the leader. So if that leader leads 10 laps, that's $500. And say he ends up finishing second or third or even breaks, that's $500 extra to his payout for the night. So
Yeah, I mean, I know to some of these teams you may not think it means a lot, but it means a lot to every single one of those when you're like, here's your check at the end of the night, but here's all the bonus money you got. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yep. So, all right. Well, thanks for coming on tonight, and best of luck to you this weekend up at Maquoketa, and then next week down at Paducah and Charleston. So it's going to be a busy next bit. Well, yeah, the next month is going to be real busy for you guys because you're racing every weekend. So.
Yeah, well, on our Mars deal, we start this weekend, and between the late models and the mods, we race every single weekend up until the Dream, with the exception of the Flow Speed Week week that goes on here. So there's a lot of action. So maybe as a fan, you can't come to every single one of them, but please, when we're within a couple of hours, come check it out so we can keep having all these shows and going all these great racetracks. And looking forward to getting it going.
For sure, because believe me, I get how easy it is to stay home and watch it on Flow, guys. But think about, I mean, for us to keep putting on these shows, honestly, we need you to come through that grandstands and buy your ticket, buy a soda, buy a water, something to be able to keep putting these shows on. So that's not just Peoria, that's all the racetracks.
Yeah, it's nice sitting at home and watching it, but there's still nothing like being at the racetrack and getting that feeling and smelling the smells and seeing the sights and being able to watch the whole racetrack at once. Yeah, you won't beat it.
Nope. I mean, like myself, is it easy for me when you guys are over at Quincy on that Friday night? Is it easy for me to stay home and watch it? Yeah. But I grew up going to Quincy in the 90s as a kid. So I'm getting off work and I'm driving to Quincy that night. So
yeah, and I think that's one place. There's a lot of people excited to go check Quincy out this year with all the updates they've done over the winter. They put in a lot of work, and that's one of the rare Friday night shows. They're going to try a couple Friday night shows this year, so we're real interested in seeing how it goes. They always have a great turnout of fans, and racetrack's usually pretty conducive to good racing, so it ought to be a good show those couple nights, and we're going there as well.
So, all right, guys. Well, this is series director Johnathan Clayton, and man, like I said, 10, 11 years we've known each other. You went from Rook to this, so I'm proud of you, bud. Hell, I went from a photographer to what I'm doing now. So
yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I'm excited to be on tonight. You've done a good job with the show. I've tuned into a couple of them. It's hard to follow up Robbie Ballman, but here we are.
Yeah. So, all right, buddy. Well, again, good luck this weekend, and we'll see you here in a couple of weeks probably, because we got the Illini coming up too. So that'll give you one off weekend in April at least. So
it's Mars Mods that weekend.
No, it is.
Come on.
Yeah, so no weekend off. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
All right, take care. Have a good evening.
All right, see ya. All right, guys. That was Johnathan Clayton. All right, so as I started the show off, we lost a good friend of all of ours Saturday, and Keith Siegel. It's still hard for me to talk about it, honestly. I don't break down very often in our driver's meeting Saturday at practice. I broke down. Sorry, we're back. I've known Keith 20 years, and he grew up at Peoria Speedway just like I did. So I've seen him at the racetrack even longer. But the last 20 years, I've got to know Keith. Between Brian Hayward, Cole Sweibold, Kurt Matas, myself, we had Keith on for a Hot Lap Heroes show one night, and after that, it turned into a podcast with Brian and Keith, the A's versus B's. he's going to be missed deeply by all of us. And again, visitation will be Thursday at 10 a.m. in Elmwood. Funerals at noon. We will come from Elmwood to Peoria Speedway. We will open up the grandstands for any fans, friends, family that couldn't make it out there that want to come to the racetrack to pay their respects for Keith's final lap around Peoria Speedway. Then we will leave Peoria and go back out to Elmwood for his burial. Next Monday, I will be doing a tribute show to Keith. Any friends, family, racers, crew members, anybody that wants to come on and tell a story about Keith, please do. Message me and I'll get you in our little messenger group to where I can share this link to come on here. Tell one story, two stories. I want to keep the show around an hour that night. So we'll tell the stories as quick as possible. I don't know how many people are planning to come on, but if it goes over an hour, we'll go over an hour. But again, Jenna, Keith's kids, Chris, Jay, Pedro, Ashley, all of you, we're sorry. If there's anything we can do, reach out to us. You guys know that. But again, we miss you, buddy. Rip Keith. We'll see you guys. Thursday's Throwback Thursday. I'm going to cancel that due to everything. So we'll see you guys again on Monday night next week for the tribute show to Keith. Thanks, you guys, for joining in tonight, and